I am Francis Nkrumah. You know, the first president of Ghana is called Kwame Nkrumah. So I was named after the first president of Ghana. Yeah, so I'm Francis Nkrumah. So I'm from Ghana, and I'm now working with the University of Cape Coast. The University of Cape Coast is located some way south of Ghana, along the coast. Yeah. So I'm with the physics department. So I did my first degree in physics, my master's in atmospheric physics, and then I did a PhD in atmospheric physics, mainly climate physics. Yeah. So I'm more of a climate scientist person. Yeah. So through my education, I've just been in the field of atmosphere. Yeah. So then along the line, but actually I didn't start from that area. I didn't want to get into atmosphere. I wanted to become a telecom engineer. Yeah. But along the line, I had interest in physics and mathematics. So my teachers actually influenced me to do much more of the physics and the mathematics. But still, I had in mind that I would do telecom engineering. So in doing physics, I wanted to focus on something called the fiber optics, and then get to telecom. But as I was moving on, I found this interesting gap that I had to fill. So in my department, there were a few people in atmospheric physics. And I was like, no, I want to be here, but I want to do something different from what is the norm of the department. So I ventured into atmospheric physics, and then here I am. So I got into the climate science from my master's to understand the climate, whatever is happening, the atmosphere, how is it influencing us and all that. So the interest built on from there, and then we started getting into climate modeling and stuff. It was up until 2019 that I heard of the degrees project. And then it was fascinating to hear something about SRM, because in the field I've been working on aerosols, I've been handling the convective systems, clouds, its impact on the climate and all that. But it had not occurred to me that SRM is an interesting area to venture. So when degrees came up with one of its calls, I was like, no, it looks interesting, so I should look at it. Along the line, I was also looking at carbon dioxide removal from the atmosphere. You know, so it all boils down to climate intervention. So I'll talk more on the climate intervention. But then SRM, wow. So I decided to take the opportunity and then start researching in that area. I did that, so interesting that there's a whole lot of confusion and then some controversy around the whole thing. And I was like, so which side will I belong to? Will I belong to, yes, we should do it, or no, it's a bad idea? And as I stand here, I still don't know where I belong to, because there's a whole lot of research to do to be sure. So initially we were talking about the fact that some of the things that we are supposed to witness from the implementation of SRM, some of them are already there. So will the SRM actually double the effect? It's a whole lot of confusion there. So that brought me into the SRM field, and I'm still working on it. Yeah. Recently, I had presenting a paper for publication, and then that come back for a lot of review questions, comments. So you see that even in the reviews, from the different reviewers, you see the different angles that they are all trying to tackle it. It tells us that we still need much more research to do in that area. But before I continue, I actually appreciate the first discussion that we did. So I was discussing with Ellen that some of these discussions, as a scientist, we don't get these views before sitting down to do the research. So we carry out the research and we bring it out before we hear some of these views. Which one way or the other, I believe that in the future, some of these things should be changing. So some of the questions that you didn't get answers to, or they couldn't also expatiate on, it's not their fault. It's not your fault, because they didn't have all these views to input in the science. So it still stems out to the point that there should be that engagement, especially with the youth, especially whereby it's going to affect. It's as if you are trying to say that my future, I can't handle it. Okay, so you are handling my future for me. But then that openness should be there, that forum should be there, that the youth will also voice. Then it also improves the research. Because if I know that this is an angle that it can be tackled, then I have to consider it in the modeling to be able to find out. Okay, so the main thing here is climate intervention. What is climate intervention itself? It's just basically trying to deciding to deliberately counteract the climate change. Okay, climate change is happening. But why is it happening? It's as a result of anthropogenic effect. I mean, what we are doing. Bringing about greenhouse gases. Okay, so there is something that we need to do, or we have to, or if I should say it, we have to intervene. But SRM itself does not come in the picture so that it will look scary, like someone said, scared. But SRM itself does not come to the picture at this moment, because the understanding is that there is greenhouse gases, global warming, leading to climate change. And this is the path that we are going. But then we don't want to go there. So what do we have to do? We have to find ways to cut down greenhouse gases and all that. But then if it happens that we are unable to do that, then SRM might be considered. So SRM is not, although we are researching into it, we are not considering it now, because there are different ways that we can go about mitigating the effect of climate change. But are we ready to do that? Carbon dioxide, are we ready to cut it down? We're talking about methane. Methane is a very potent gas that is about 80 times potent than carbon dioxide in the short term. So, but methane comes from the things that are very close to us, like cattle rearing. Cattle rearing is contributing about 30% of the methane in the atmosphere. Rice cultivation. Okay, the dump sites, refuse dump sites, they are actually producing the methane. But this methane in the atmosphere would even exacerbate the effect of greenhouse gas, climate change. We are not handling it because we need the meat, we need the rice. So politically, we can't make any policies around it. But then if we continue to promote some of these things in and around our society, then the only solution might be to go back to SRM. So you see the picture. We have a problem to solve. We know how to go about it. But we can't do that because of our comfort. So if it happens that it is out of hand, we have to find a means to control it. Then we go to SRM. So we have the carbon dioxide removal. Now I recently chanced on, so I wrote for a project on methane removal or methane oxidation. Okay. So we oxidize the methane to get carbon dioxide in water, because we feel that Methane is very potent. At least carbon dioxide can stay, but not very potent, or its effect would be felt later on. Okay, so there are all those things that we have to work with. So in climate intervention, we have the side of carbon dioxide removal or greenhouse removal, and then solar radiation modification. But when it comes to solar radiation modification, there's a whole lot of confusion about it. Because one of my major challenge or confusion has to do with, so which location are we going to inject these aerosols in the stratosphere? In terms of which latitudinal location are we going to do it? For example, let me take my region in perspective. The African region, West Africa, we already have a lot of aerosols in the atmosphere, air pollution. See, the effects that this SRM is supposed to give to us is one way or the other, the effects that the pollution or the aerosol that is in the atmosphere is giving to us. So during that time, when there's a lot of pollution, the solar radiation is reduced to the surface. So now, if there is SRM and there is an injection of more aerosols in the stratosphere, is it going to double the cooling that is going to happen? Or what's going to happen? We don't know. If it is injected at another latitude, maybe the mid-latitude, how will it affect us in the tropics? Because if it is in the tropics, it's likely that it will double the effect of cooling. Because there's already, the recent work that I said that I had a lot of reviews. I was considering the solar radiation effect, management effects on, in West Africa, what we refer to as the Harmattan season. The Harmattan is the dry season of West Africa, where there's a lot of dust coming from the Sahara, the Sahel into the coast. So it happens that there are a lot of aerosols in the atmosphere at the coast during this time, December, January, February. Now we have SRM. There are already a lot of aerosols, particles in the atmosphere. SRM is coming to add up. What is going to happen? The Harmattan, we have dry and cooler temperatures. Now, are we going to have cooler, more cold atmosphere during that time? How can we handle it? So it's a bit more of an important area that a lot of people have to come to help and then just research to get good information, concrete information. Because as it stands now, we are just trying. So you look at rainfall, for example. If SRM is implemented, it's going to affect rainfall in West Africa. If it's going to affect rainfall in West Africa, it's going to affect agriculture in West Africa. We depend on agriculture. Fine, our temperatures are cooled, but we can't get food to eat. So is SRM helping or it's not helping? Now, if we implement it and it's going to cool and going to affect our rainfall, how is it going to affect our rainfall? Or how is it going to affect agriculture? You also realize that even for a region like West Africa, the effect of SRM differs from country to country. Maybe a broader area, let's say the coastal part of West Africa might have similarities. When you go to the middle part or the northern part, it looks different. Meaning that even the effect that we are going to have, we can't of a certain say that the rainfall is going to even affect or is going to reduce everywhere. There are regions that already have less rainfall. Some of those regions might see an enhancement in their rainfall. Some of the regions that actually have more rainfall might see reduction in their rainfall. So is SRM going to turn the world upside down? Is it going to switch the coastal behavior, the agricultural behaviors to desert behaviors, and then the desert areas to behave like, more of agricultural zones? We don't know. So in the quest to try to understand SRM, we have to break it down into what do we actually expect to get from that. Okay, and I feel that that is one of the major questions that we should ask ourselves. What do we actually want to get? Are we implementing SRM to witness an effect in terms of cooling down the globe? But we should bear in mind that the globe is controlled by the solar radiation. Okay, and anything that affects it affects everything. So we are cooling it down. We should bear in mind that there are consequences related to everything, including the economy and our livelihood. So are we just interested in, no, it is too hot. We want our normal temperatures. Or we are interested in the end result. Now, we've reduced it to our normal temperatures. What will change? In the first presentation, we talked about the fact that when we are supposed to reverse it back, someone said that that would be the first wish, that everything goes back. But let's say that in the normal situation, a lot of things weren't present. So if we cool it back, do we get rid of all those things? So the last 10 years, the number of cars that are here, they were not there. The number of buildings were not there. A whole lot of things that you've acquired, you didn't have them. So if you cool it back to that old system, will we get rid of all those things? Because even in this room, the more people come inside, the place will be warmer. So naturally, it is something that is going to happen. So climate change itself, in the natural situation, even without human beings, it would have occurred, but at a slower rate. So because we are increasing in number and all those things, some of these things, they would continue to occur. So even if we take it back, we will still have the consequences. So now, what are we interested in? As a globe, what are we interested in? Are we just interested in cooling? Or we are interested in having a balanced Earth? The tropics serve as the heat engine for the globe. If you cool the tropics, the other part, what happens to them? Because whatever is happening there is what, over time, it spreads across. So if you reduce the heating at the coast or at the tropics, what will happen to the lives in the other latitudes? If you now decide to inject the aerosols in the mid-latitudes, what is going to happen there? You're going to heat that region, or what? Or you want to cool that region, that place is already cooler. So the point, what do we tend to gain? And that is me, personally, that is where I stand. And that is my main confusion. What do we intend to gain in implementing SRM? Maybe you have a different picture because you are talking about cooling. But that is not what we are looking for. The cooling can happen, but other things will also happen. For example, in my region, in the research I am doing, I realized that if SRM is implemented over maybe around December, January, February, I realized that our rainfall depends on what we refer to as the rainfall band. There's a band over the region, over the globe, that modulates our rainfall, where the rainfall should be, called the ITCZ, or the Intertropical Convergence Zone. But let me say rainfall band. When in the implementation on the SRM, the rainfall band tend to stay southward of our region when it's supposed to move inland. It means that there's a possibility of the delay of the rainfall over the region. So if you expect rainfall now, it might come the following month. But then for the agriculturists, they know that they are starting planting now. So what will happen to them? They will lose their yield. Are we looking at that, or we are looking at just cooling it? Because to us, when the band stays down, we are affected. SRM will tend to reduce the speed of the winds over our region. The good thing that we realized from SRM is that over the region, if the wind speeds are reduced, during even the Harmattan, where the dust is supposed to come into the coast, because the wind speeds are reduced, the dust are not able to travel down to the coast. We get our air stays quality. So SRM would help to improve our air quality. And that we want it. But at that same time, we are getting quality of air, but our rains are not coming. So you have good air to breathe in, you are lacking food to eat. Okay, so the whole thing is that complex that we would have to, step by step, go through all the phases to get a balance point where we will all gain. Because if we don't take care, we would implement it as a good idea, but it will become the worst nightmare that the globe would ever experience. Thank you. All right.